At 16:47 hours on March 23, 1945, Sergeant William Harker crouched in a shell crater 30 yards from a destroyed farmhouse in western Germany, trying to count the rounds in his Springfield rifle. His fingers were numb. The temperature was below freezing. Snow mixed with mud covered everything. He had fired so many times in the past 2 hours that he had lost track of how many rounds remained. His fingers moved over the ammunition pouches on his belt. Empty, empty, empty. The fourth pouch had weight. He opened it with shaking hands. 1 clip. 5 rounds wrapped in the distinctive en-bloc clip of the Springfield M1903. He checked his rifle, pulled back the bolt slightly. 1 round already chambered. The brass glinted in the late afternoon light. 6 bullets total. That was all the ammunition he had left in the world. Harker was 24 years old, from a small town in Montana called Red Lodge, population 800. He had grown up in the mountains, hunting elk with his father every autumn. He had joined the Army in 1942, 3 months after Pearl Harbor. He had trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, infantry school, advanced marksmanship, squad leader training. He had qualified expert with the Springfield rifle, hitting targets at 500 yards. He had landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day, survived Normandy, fought through France, pushed into Belgium during the Bulge, crossed the Rhine 3 weeks ago. Now he was in Germany, pushing east, and his war had come down to 6 bullets. Harker was a squad leader in Company B, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, the big red one. His squad had been 12 men that morning when they jumped off to assault a German defensive position near the town of Meschede. Now there were 4. The others were dead, wounded, or scattered across 200 yards of torn ground. The 4 survivors were pinned down in 3 different shell craters by a German counterattack that had materialized out of the tree line like a nightmare. Nobody had expected it. Intelligence said the Germans were retreating. Intelligence was wrong. The Germans had infantry. Harker estimated 40 men, maybe more, and they had armor. A Panzer IV medium tank rolling down the dirt road toward the American positions, firing its 75mm main gun at anything that moved. Every time someone tried to reposition, tried to run, tried to pull back, the tank would traverse its turret and fire. High explosive shells that turned cover into shrapnel, that turned men into mist. Harker's radio operator was dead. A shell had landed directly in his crater 10 minutes ago. His rifleman, Private Daniels, was wounded, shrapnel in the left leg from the same shell. The wound was bad. Daniels was conscious, but losing blood. His bar gunner, Private Jensen, was in a crater 20 yards to the left. His last rifleman, Private Coleman, was in a crater 30 yards to the right. They were cut off, isolated. The main American line was 400 yards behind them. Between Harker's position and safety was open ground, no cover, swept by German machine gun fire from 2 positions and dominated by that tank. 400 yards might as well have been 400 miles. Harker looked at his Springfield rifle, the M1903. Wood stock worn smooth from 7 months of use. Metal blued from factory, but now scratched and dented from combat. The rifle weighed 8.7 pounds unloaded. It was a bolt-action design from World War I. 5-round internal magazine. Maximum effective range 600 yards. Muzzle velocity 2,800 feet per second. It was a good rifle. Harker trusted it. He had made kills at 300 yards with iron sights. But 6 rounds against 40 German infantry and a 33-ton tank? The mathematics were brutal. The mathematics were impossible. He heard Jensen shouting from the other crater, his voice barely audible over the sound of machine gun fire. "Sarge, they're moving up, infantry behind the tank." Harker raised his head enough to see over the lip of the crater. The Panzer IV was advancing slowly, methodically, walking speed, maybe 3 miles per hour. Its engine rumbled, its tracks clanked, its exhaust poured black smoke into the cold air. German infantry was moving in its shadow, using the tank for cover. Standard German assault tactics. The tank suppresses enemy positions with its cannon and machine guns. The infantry advances behind the armor, protected from direct fire. Once the infantry gets within grenade range, they assault and overrun the position. Harker estimated the tank was 50 yards away. At walking speed, the Germans would reach his crater in maybe 90 seconds. 2 minutes maximum. He had 2 minutes to decide what to do. He looked at Daniels. The wounded rifleman was pale, sweating despite the cold. blood soaking through the bandage on his leg. Daniels needed a medic. He needed evacuation. He needed treatment, or he would bleed out in that crater. Harker did the math. 6 rounds, 4 men to protect, 2 wounded or compromised, 40 Germans advancing, 1 tank with a 75mm gun that could kill from a mile away. The smart decision was to surrender, throw down the rifle, put hands up, live to fight another day. But the Germans had been executing prisoners during the retreat. Harker had seen it. Villages with dead Americans, hands tied, shot in the back of the head. The Wehrmacht was desperate. War crimes were happening. Surrender might mean death anyway. Harker made his decision. He would cover his men. He would use his 6 rounds to buy time for Jensen and Coleman to escape. They were unwounded. They could run. They could make it back to the American line if someone suppressed the Germans for 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That was all they needed. And Harker would buy them those 10 seconds with 6 bullets. Jensen, Coleman, when I start shooting, you run. Get back to the line. Jensen's voice came back, distant, strained. What about you and Daniels? I'll cover you, then I'll carry Daniels. Just go when I say. It was a lie. Harker knew he couldn't carry Daniels 400 yards under fire, but he could give Jensen and Coleman a chance. 2 men saved was better than 4 men dead. Harker checked his Springfield one more time. 1 round in the chamber, 5 in the clip. He would have to make every shot count. Not to kill Germans. Killing 40 men with 6 rounds was impossible, but to make them hesitate, to make them take cover, to make them think twice about advancing, to buy 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Then Jensen and Coleman would be running. Then Harker would have accomplished something with his last 6 bullets. The Panzer IV was 45 yards away now. Its turret traversed left and right, scanning for targets. The commander was standing in the cupola, half exposed, using binoculars to direct the advance. The infantry behind the tank was spreading out, preparing to rush. Harker picked his first target. A German sergeant, identifiable by the MP-40 submachine gun and the way the other soldiers were looking at him for orders. Range 30 yards. Easy shot. Harker aimed. Steady. Breathe. Squeeze. The Springfield kicked against his shoulder. The sound cracked across the battlefield. The German sergeant dropped, hit center mass, dead before he fell. The other Germans immediately hit the ground, looking for the shooter. Confusion. Chaos. They had thought the Americans in the craters were suppressed, pinned down, finished. Now someone was shooting back. Harker worked the bolt. The spent casing ejected in a brass arc. He chambered the second round, aimed at another soldier, fired. The bullet hit. Another German down. Go, now, run! He heard Jensen scrambling out of his crater, running, boots on frozen mud, heavy breathing. He heard Coleman doing the same from the other direction. Both men sprinting, running for their lives, running for the American line 400 yards away. Harker kept firing. Third shot. A German machine gunner trying to set up an MG-42 hit in the shoulder. The machine gunner dropped. The MG-42 fell. Fourth shot. Another rifleman hit in the leg, screaming. Fifth shot. A German trying to throw a grenade, hit in the chest. The grenade fell at his feet and exploded, killing 2 more Germans who were taking cover nearby. The Germans were returning fire now, but they were shooting blind, not sure exactly where Harker was. His muzzle flash gave away his general position, but the crater gave him cover. Bullets snapped overhead. Dirt exploded around the crater's edge. But Harker was below the lip, protected. He looked up. Jensen and Coleman were running, 60 yards back, 80 yards, 100 yards, zigzagging, keeping low. German machine gun fire was chasing them, kicking up dirt around their boots. But they were moving fast. They were going to make it. Harker had 1 round left. He had accomplished his mission. 2 men saved. He could die now, knowing he had done something useful with his last bullets. But then the Panzer IV's turret stopped moving. The barrel was pointing directly at Harker's crater. The tank commander had spotted him. Harker could see the muzzle of the 75mm gun, a black hole that looked enormous from 30 yards away. He could see the tank commander in the cupola, pointing, shouting orders to the gunner inside. Harker understood what was about to happen. The tank would fire. The 75mm high explosive shell would hit his crater. The explosion would kill him and Daniels instantly. There would be nothing left to bury. He had 1 bullet left. 1 Springfield, 30-06 cartridge. A lead-core bullet weighing 150 grains, traveling at 2,800 feet per second, designed to kill infantry at long range. It was useless against a tank. The Panzer IV had 50 mm of rolled homogeneous armor on the front hull, 30 m on the sides, 20 mm on the rear. Even the thinnest armor was impervious to rifle fire. A .30-06 round would bounce off like a pebble thrown at a brick wall. Shooting the tank with a rifle was pointless. It was suicide without purpose. But Harker was from Montana. He had grown up hunting in the mountains around Red Lodge. His father, Jack Harker, had been a hunting guide. He had taught William to hunt elk, deer, black bear, mountain lion. The Harker family survived on meat they hunted. Winters in Montana were hard. You learned to make every shot count because ammunition was expensive and game was scarce. His father had taught him a fundamental lesson. If you can't penetrate armor, find the weak point. Elk had thick shoulder bones. You couldn't shoot through the shoulder with a .30-06. The bullet would shatter on bone, and the elk would run wounded into the mountains where you would never find it. But the heart and lungs were behind the ribs. A side shot behind the shoulder would penetrate ribs and kill instantly. You had to wait for the right angle. You had to be patient. You had to find the weak point. Tanks had weak points too. Harker had seen disabled tanks. He had examined destroyed panzers after battles. He had talked to tankers, both American and German prisoners. Tanks were heavily armored on the hull and turret, but they had openings, vision ports, driver's hatches, ventilation grills, exhaust ports. Every opening was a potential weak point. The Panzer IV was 30 yards away. Its turret was traversed toward Harker. The 75-meter gun was aimed directly at his crater. The tank commander was in the cupola, exposed from the waist up, directing the final adjustments to the gun elevation. To command a tank, you had to see. To see, you needed vision. The tank commander's cupola had 7 vision blocks around its circumference. Thick glass blocks set in metal frames. They allowed the commander to see in all directions while remaining protected. But glass was not armor. The vision blocks were designed to stop shrapnel and small debris. They were not designed to stop bullets. Most infantry didn't shoot at tank vision blocks because most infantry couldn't hit a 4-inch target at any meaningful range under combat conditions. But Harker was not most infantry. He was a Montana hunter who had grown up making impossible shots on elk at 300 yards in mountain wind. He was a marksman who had qualified expert. He was a man with 1 bullet left and nothing to lose. The Panzer IV was 30 yards away. The commander's cupola had a vision block facing directly toward Harker. 4 inches wide, 3 inches tall, protected by metal frames top and bottom. Harker aimed at the vision block, at the glass. A target the size of a playing card from 30 yards. Under fire, with shaking hands, with frozen fingers. With a rifle that had been dropped, dragged through mud, and fired hundreds of times without proper cleaning. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Don't think about missing. Don't think about the consequences. Just aim. Breathe. Squeeze. Harker exhaled slowly. Let half his breath out. Held the rest. His finger took up the trigger slack. The Springfield had a 2-stage trigger. First stage took up the slack. Second stage broke clean at 3.5 pounds. He squeezed through the second stage. The Springfield fired. The recoil pushed against his shoulder. The sound cracked across the frozen field. The bullet left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. At 30 yards, the bullet arrived almost instantly. No time to see it. No time to correct. The bullet hit the vision block dead center. The thick glass shattered. Not cleanly. It spiderwebbed and fragmented. But the bullet had enough energy. It punched through, continued through the broken glass into the cupola, into the tank commander's face. The tank commander's name was Hauptmann Klaus Zimmermann. He was 38 years old, from Stuttgart. He had been fighting since 1939. Poland, France, Russia, North Africa, Italy, now Germany. He had survived 6 years of war. He had commanded 5 different tanks. He had been wounded twice and decorated 3 times. He was expecting to be killed by a shell, a mine, an airstrike. He was not expecting to be killed by a single rifle bullet through a vision block at 30 yards. The .30-06 round entered Zimmermann's face just below his left eye. It fragmented on impact with his skull. Pieces of the bullet and pieces of bone ricocheted inside the tank's turret. Zimmermann died instantly. His body slumped forward against the cupola ring. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Panzer IV sat there, engine idling. The German infantry was still firing. Harker was out of ammunition. He dropped into the crater, expecting the tank to fire, expecting to die. The tank didn't fire. Instead, smoke started pouring from the commander's cupola. Someone inside was screaming. Harker could hear it even over the gunfire. The screaming got louder, more desperate. Someone was trying to pull Zimmerman's body out of the cupola. Blood was pouring down the outside of the turret. The tank's engine revved suddenly. The driver was panicking. Nobody was giving him orders. The commander was dead. The gunner was screaming. The loader was trying to help. The co-driver didn't know what to do. The Panzer IV lurched backward, turning, trying to retreat. But the driver was panicking. He wasn't looking. He backed the tank into a drainage ditch at the side of the road. The left track dropped into the ditch. The tank tilted at a 30-degree angle. The right track spun uselessly in the air. The Panzer IV was stuck, immobilized, the crew scrambling to abandon. The German infantry saw their tank disabled. They saw their commander dead or dying. They saw blood on the turret. They heard the screaming from inside. And they saw the tank stuck in a ditch, useless. They stopped advancing. Some of them started pulling back toward the tree line. Others tried to help the tank crew escape. The assault had lost momentum. The attack had stalled. Harker didn't waste the opportunity. He grabbed Daniels under the arms and started dragging him out of the crater. Daniels groaned in pain but didn't resist. His wounded leg dragged through the mud. Blood dripped. Harker pulled. His arms burned. His back screamed. The Springfield was slung across his back, empty, useless. But the Germans weren't shooting at him anymore. They were focused on the disabled tank, on their dying commander, on the sudden collapse of their assault. Harker dragged Daniels 10 yards, 20 yards. His lungs burned. His vision tunneled. He kept moving. 30 yards. 50 yards. American soldiers saw what was happening. 3 men ran out from the defensive line to help. They grabbed Daniels and carried him the rest of the way. One of them pulled Harker by the arm. "Come on, Sergeant, move." Harker stumbled. His legs gave out. 2 soldiers grabbed him and half-carried him back. 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards. They dropped behind the American line into a trench. Harker collapsed. He couldn't feel his hands. His ears were ringing from hours of gunfire. Someone gave him water. He drank. Someone gave him cigarettes. He tried to light one, but his hands were shaking too badly. Someone else lit it for him. A lieutenant came over. First Lieutenant Morrison, company commander's aide. "Sergeant Harker, what the hell happened out there? We saw the tank stop. We saw it back into the ditch. What did you do?" Harker took a drag on the cigarette. "I shot the commander." Morrison stared at him. "You shot the tank commander? How?" "Through the vision slit. With my rifle." "With your rifle? A Springfield? From how far?" 30 yards, maybe 35. Morrison's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's impossible. The vision slits are 4 inches wide. You can't hit that under fire." Harker didn't argue. He just sat there, smoking, trying to stop shaking. His Springfield was across his lap. The bolt was open. The magazine was empty. The barrel was still warm. Morrison called for a medic to check Harker. The medic examined him. No wounds. Bruised shoulder from rifle recoil. Mild hypothermia. Exhaustion. Dehydration. But alive. Jensen and Coleman had made it back to the American line. Both were alive. Both were safe. They came to find Harker. Jensen gripped his shoulder. "You saved us, Sarge. We made it because of you." Harker nodded. He couldn't speak. His throat was tight. Coleman said quietly, "We counted, Sarge. We heard 6 shots. You hit with all 6? Harker nodded again. "Jesus," Coleman said. 6 for 6, and the last one killed a tank. The word spread through the company. Harker became known as One Shot for a while, though he hated the nickname. It felt wrong. He didn't think of himself as a great marksman. He thought of himself as a desperate man who got lucky. 6 bullets. 6 hits. The last one saved his life and the lives of 3 others. That wasn't skill. That was survival. Later that night, after dark, a patrol went out to investigate the disabled Panzer IV. The tank was still there, Tilted in the ditch, abandoned. The crew had fled into the trees. The American patrol approached cautiously. They climbed onto the hull. They examined the turret. The commander's cupola was open. There was blood inside. A lot of blood. The vision block had a hole in it the size of a dime. The glass had shattered inward. Pieces of glass were embedded in the blood. The patrol could see the bullet's trajectory. Straight through the vision block into the commander's position. One shot, one kill. The patrol also found Harker's spent brass casings around the shell crater. They counted them. 6 Springfield 30-06 casings. They walked the battlefield and found 5 dead Germans in the approach to Harker's position. 5 men killed by rifle fire, plus 1 tank commander inside the Panzer IV. 6 bullets, 6 hits. One of them through a 4-inch vision slit at 30 yards. The patrol leader was a sergeant named Miller. He had been a competitive shooter before the war. He understood what Harker had done. He collected the 6 brass casings and brought them back. He gave them to Harker. "Keep these, Harker. You'll want to remember this someday." Harker took the casings. He put them in his pocket. He didn't look at them. The 1st Infantry Division pushed deeper into Germany over the next 7 weeks. The war moved east. Harker continued fighting. His squad was rebuilt with replacements. He trained them. He kept them alive when he could. He lost some of them anyway. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe ended. Harker was in Czechoslovakia when the announcement came. The men celebrated. Harker just sat quietly, smoking, thinking about all the men who didn't make it, all the friends who died, all the close calls, all the moments when death was 1 second away. He had survived. That was enough. William Harker was awarded the Silver Star for his actions on March 23, 1945. The citation read, "For gallantry in action against the enemy." While under intense fire and with limited ammunition, Sergeant Harker engaged and neutralized enemy armor and infantry, enabling the successful withdrawal of his men and preventing enemy breakthrough. His actions reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Army. It didn't mention that he did it with 6 bullets. It didn't mention the impossible shot through the vision slit. Military citations were always brief. The details lived in memory and in the stories men told each other. After the war, Harker returned to Montana. He received his discharge in July 1945. He took a train from New York to Montana. He arrived in Red Lodge on August 3rd. His father met him at the station. They shook hands. They didn't talk much. His father understood. Some things didn't need words. Harker worked as a hunting guide in the mountains around Red Lodge. He was good at it, patient, calm, methodical. He taught clients how to shoot, how to track, how to read terrain. He became known as one of the best guides in Montana. Clients came from across the country to hunt with him. They always asked if he had been in the war. He would say yes. They would ask if he had seen combat. He would say yes. Most didn't ask for details. The ones who did usually regretted it. Harker's answers were brief and matter-of-fact. He didn't glorify war. He didn't dramatize. He stated facts and moved on. In 1962, a writer from a military history magazine called American Rifleman tracked Harker down. The writer, a man named Robert Hutchinson, had been researching unusual acts of marksmanship from World War II. He had found the after-action report from March 23, 1945. He had found the Silver Star citation. He had tracked down Lieutenant Morrison, who was now a retired colonel. Morrison had told him about Harker's shot. Hutchinson drove to Montana to interview Harker. They met at a diner in Red Lodge. Hutchinson had a tape recorder. Harker was suspicious, but agreed to talk. Hutchinson asked the obvious question. "How did you make that shot? What were you thinking?" Harker's answer was simple and direct. "I was out of ammunition except for 1 round. The tank was going to kill me. I couldn't penetrate the armor, so I aimed for the only part I could penetrate, the vision slit. I took the shot. I got lucky." Hutchinson pressed. "But weren't you scared? Didn't you think about missing?" Harker shrugged. "If I missed, I'd be dead. But I'd be dead anyway if I didn't shoot. Missing wasn't really a concern. I just aimed and fired." "Had you ever made a shot like that before?" "No, that was the only time. I've shot thousands of rounds in my life, but that was the only time it mattered like that. 1 bullet, 1 target. No second chance. Do you think it was skill or luck? Harker thought about that. Both. I was a good shot. I had trained. I had experience hunting difficult targets. But at 30 yards under fire with frozen hands, that's mostly luck. The rifle could have jammed. The bullet could have deflected off the metal frame around the glass. The commander could have moved at the last second. I got lucky that none of those things happened. The article was published in American Rifleman in March 1963, the 18th anniversary of the shot. It was titled, "One Shot, One Tank, The Impossible Kill at Meschede." The article included the after-action report, interviews with surviving members of Harker's squad, and a photograph of the disabled Panzer IV taken by Army Signal Corps after the battle. The photo clearly showed the shattered vision slit. The article got attention. Veterans who had been at the battle wrote letters confirming the story. The photograph verified the damage. Other military historians began citing the incident as one of the most unusual tank kills of the war. But Harker never talked about it much after the article. When people in Red Lodge asked about it, he would shrug and say, "It was war. You do what you have to do. I did what I had to do." William Harker died on September 17, 1989, at the age of 68. He was hiking alone in the Beartooth Mountains, one of his favorite areas. He suffered a massive heart attack on a ridge at 9,000 feet elevation. He died instantly, looking out over the mountains he loved. His son, Thomas Harker, found his father's body the next day after he failed to return. Thomas organized the funeral. At his father's house, while going through his possessions, Thomas found his father's old Springfield rifle in a gun safe in the basement. There was a piece of masking tape on the stock with a handwritten note. Last round, March 23, 1945. Vision slit, 30 yards. Thank God it worked. Thomas also found a small wooden box containing 6 brass cartridge casings. Each casing was labeled with a number and a note. German sergeant, 30 yards. German rifleman, 28 yards. German machine gunner, 35 yards. German rifleman, 32 yards. German grenadier, 30 yards. Tank commander, 30 yards. Vision slit, 6 bullets, 6 hits. His father had kept the brass from that day for 44 years. Thomas donated the rifle and the brass casings to the Montana Military Museum in Helena. They're displayed together in a glass case with a photograph of the disabled Panzer IV. The placard reads, "Springfield M1903 rifle used by Sergeant William Harker, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, March 23, 1945, near Meschede, Germany." With only 6 rounds remaining, Sergeant Harker engaged and suppressed enemy infantry, enabling his squad to withdraw. His final shot penetrated the vision slit of a Panzer IV tank commander's cupola at 30 yards, killing the commander and disabling the tank. All 6 shots fired resulted in hits. Sergeant Harker was awarded the Silver Star for this action. Sometimes survival isn't about having enough ammunition. It's about making the ammunition you have count for everything. 1 bullet, 1 impossible target. 1 moment when training, experience, desperation, and luck aligned perfectly. 6 men went into battle that morning. 4 came back alive. Because one sergeant from Montana used his last bullet not to kill infantry, but to kill the man commanding the weapon that would have killed them all. William Harker never called himself a hero. He called himself a survivor. But the men he saved, Jensen, Coleman, and Daniels, they called him the reason they came home, the reason they had families, the reason they lived to be old men. 1 shot, 30 yards. Through a 4-inch vision slit, into a tank commander's brain, with the last bullet, under fire, with frozen hands. Impossible, except it happened. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure William Harker doesn't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.